Hello, I'm Rhea, and this is 69% Pink. And alright, this video is a little bit out of left field, to be honest, so please don't get used to it. This isn't my usual content, but I made this PowerPoint presentation a while back for my friends during our presentation night that we used to hold, and it took me so long to make it that I wanted to immortalize it somewhere. Also, some of my friends who aren't as familiar with Hanfu wanted to see it, so I decided I might as well make a video for it. Though I have to add a disclaimer, which is that I am no expert. I called this video a beginner's guide to Hanfu for a reason, and I've just been on Zheshan a lot, and I think Hanfu are gorgeous, so because I wanted to learn more about it to draw it, I thought I might as well share my knowledge. I think it's good enough to familiarize someone who knows nothing about it with, but I'll add some better sources in the description to get more in depth with if you're interested. I'm also not super familiar with the exact dynasties in which what was worn when was off the top of my head, so I'm sorry if I get things wrong. You can comment or something if I messed up anything. And also, forgive me if I mess up some pinging, because my pinging is very messy, but I'm trying my best, guys. So, anyway, let's start. I've got a table of contents here, and we'll be starting off with this question. If you're not aware already, what exactly is Hanfu anyway? Well, Hanfu is a general term for the traditional Chinese clothing in feudal dynasties ruled by Han people, the most populous ethnic group in China. Recently, it's been having a boom in popularity, and more Chinese people have been wearing it casually. It's all over Taobao as well, and very easily found and bought if you just search it up. These are the garments that you would also always see worn by characters and actors in period dramas as well. So if you're ever wondering what those were called, it's Hanfu. According to the garment's length, there are 3 types of Hanfu, which is the Ru, the Shu, and the Shenyi. A complete set of Hanfu usually has 3 layers: the undergarment, the middle garment, and the outer garment. The Hanfu that we see most of the time, and that I'll be going through later, are all the outer garments for the most part. And while we are here, I know people confuse these 3 as well very often, so I'm just here to clear this up for you. Generally, the main difference between kimonos, Hanfu, and hanbok to me are the silhouette that they have. Kimonos tend to have a boxier, straight silhouette, while hanbok have a more poofy, oval type of silhouette here, if you can take a look. And Hanfu is typically confused for these 2 types of styles because of the different styles that it has, that I'll go through later, because there are some Hanfu that are straight rows like kimono, and there are some where the skirt starts at the chest like this as well, and which thus gets confused for hanbok. But in my opinion, hanbok is still much poofier than Hanfu, which is very flowy, and I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's very like this. Also, the thick obi that is worn around kimonos is unique to them, while the sashes worn around Ruqun are a lot thinner, as can be seen from the picture here. And if I'm not wrong, the extra ribbon thing worn at the collar of the hanbok that drapes too, this purple thing, is also unique to hanbok, I believe. I don't think Hanfu has that. Here are some other differences that they have between the ways that the collar is done as well. That ends what my general description for what Hanfu is. But, well, as I said before, there are several different styles of Hanfu, and so I'll be going through the basic styles for women first. I feel like female Hanfu might be more commonly seen, so I'll just start with them. Firstly, we have the Ruqun, which is the most basic kind of Hanfu, consisting of a top and a wraparound skirt. The top is called the Ru, and the skirt is called Chun, hence it is called a Ruqun. The sleeves for the top, the Ru, can be narrow or wide, and generally speaking, people divide Ruqun into 2 types based on the height of the skirt, which is the Qiyao襦裙and the Qixiong. These are the Qiyao襦裙, And Qiyao Ruqun is the kind of Ruqun in which the waistband is on the waist. And this style is unisex. For women, the top's collar can be parallel, crossed, or U-shaped. But men's Ruqun are only cross-collared. And next we have the Qixiong Ruqun, which is the kind of Ruqun in which the waistband is above the chest. And the top collar can be parallel or crossed. And this style is only worn by women. Next up is the Aoqun, which is a type of Ruqun that got popular during the Ming Dynasty. It is also known as the Shanqun. It consists of a double-layered top called Ao and a waist-high skirt, hence Aoqun. Unlike the standard Ruqun that has the top tucked inside of the skirt, the Aoqun's top is worn untucked above the skirt. There are two types of Ao, short Ao and long Ao, as can be seen from the pictures here. The short Ao reaches the waist, while the long Ao covers the knees. Ao collars can be crossed, upright, or square, and Aoqun are only worn by women. And okay, I'm not really covering undergarments in this or middleware, but this one and the next slide of Heziqun are exceptions because they are a popular style of wearing Hanfu and wearing a Ruqun. But otherwise, actually, there's a lot more about undergarments and middle garments because most of the Hanfu I'm covering are like outer clothes. I didn't research much about the others, so I'm not including them. Sorry. But anyway, this is the Xiong, and the Xiong is the rectangular or the square undergarment which is exposed when paired with parallel collar Ruqun and Beizi. It is this thing, basically. And it can also be worn with cross-collar Ruqun, like this picture here. But I mean, it's generally only worn with Qiyao Ruqun because, you know, the Qixiong Ruqun will cover it. It can come with or without straps, and it is always worn under the top or beizi and is always tucked into the skirt. And now for my personal favorite Hanfu style. This is the Heziqun, and the Heziqun consists of two separate pieces. The Hezi, which is a strapless undergarment that became fashionable during the Tang Dynasty, and the Qun, which is the skirt. The Hezi can be straight and rectangular, or curved with a raised front center section. The Hezi usually only covers the chest, unlike the Xiong, which also covers the stomach area. And the Hezi can be worn inside or outside the top of the Ruqun, but is most commonly worn over the top. And to be honest, what a Hezi is has been questioned a lot as well, because most have only been able to speculate about it from paintings, sculptures, and descriptions, but no actual artifact of it has been found. So some people think that Hezi worn outside may just be a really wide skirted, but at the same time some sculptures showed Hezi worn on top of the skirt. And these two speculations may both be correct, and these Hezi or Hezi-like things may have both existed in history, but modern reinvented Hezi generally appear now as a separate wide rectangular column tied on top of the skirt, which might have been founded by a leading Hanfu fashion brand, Shuhe, and I think this is the most common type right now. Or it will also appear as a long piece but with a curved top. And due to the lack of clothing evidence, some do not consider this or some other variations of Hezi as Hanfu. And this idea may contribute to the popularity of the first type of Hezi mentioned above, as it does seem more like a decorative accessory more than proper clothing. Next up though, we have the Shenyi. Unlike the Ruqun or Aoqun, which consists of a top and bottom piece, the Shenyi style of Hanfu consists of one-piece ropes that wrap around the body once or several times. As the name would imply as well, because Shenyi means deep, they are generally floor-length. Zhiju, which is the straight hem rope, and Quju, which is the curved hem rope, are two types of Shenyi. And Quju and Zhiju are worn by both men and women. The Zhiju, as its name suggests, as the straight hem rope, is a one-piece rope with a straight bottom hem that circles around levelly. To be honest, finding women wearing this was quite hard among the sea of Ruqun pictures, probably because girls find Ruquns a lot cuter and have more room to do fun stuff with them than one single robe. I don't know, but I found that interesting. And next is the Qiju, which I think is severely underrated because look at how pretty it is. Oh my gosh. In contrast to how the Zhiju's bottom hem just circles levelly, the Qiju is different in that the left lapel spirals up to the waist of the wearer. Historically, Qiju generally were floor-length, like this purple one, but nowadays modern Hanfu often use a shortened version which reveals the skirt worn underneath, like these. And this is historically inaccurate as far as I know, but like a lot of modern Hanfu takes a lot of liberties for cuteness, so I think it's fine. Like this is kind of normal. And now, I think I may have mentioned the Beizi several times before this slide, but you get a proper introduction this time. This, the Beizi, is a parallel collar overcoat with side slits beginning at the armpit or at the waist. It can be secured at the front with either with ties or a metal button, and is an extremely versatile piece as it can be long, short, have narrow or wide sleeves, and is worn by both men and women. It can also be unlined or lined, so it's usually suitable for most weather. Another name for Ming Dynasty Beizi is Pifeng as well, and these are Pifeng. These are regular Beizi. And next up is the Banbi, with its name translating to half arm, is, as its name indicates, a half-sleeve overcoat worn by both men and women. It comes in various lengths and is usually worn over Ruqun. Its collar can be parallel, crossed, or U-shaped. Also, this particular U-shaped Banbi and Ruqun combo is also known as the Tanling Ruqun. And when worn with Ruqun, the Banbi can be tucked into the skirts or left untucked, as can be seen from like these pictures. But like, yeah, there's so many ways of wearing it. Next up, we have the Bijia, which is a sleeveless jacket that is usually worn over Aoqun and that comes in various lengths and styles. They have parallel collars like the Beizi as well and can be fastened with buttons and ties. And this is the last slide for the women's Hanfu styles, and this piece is very popular and for a good reason. I really love it as well. But this is the Daxiushan, and this is a large sleeved robe commonly paired with Ruqun. As its name that directly translates to big sleeve jacket or upper garment indicates, its main feature is its broad sleeves. The length is at least 78 inches and the width exceeds 40 inches. The material is generally thin and light because it was originally created for wear in the summer, and it will always be unlined for this reason. And that about wraps up the common styles for women's Hanfu. Now on to the common styles of men's Hanfu. Starting us off, we have the Yishang, and the Yishang consists of a man's cross-collar robe with a wraparound skirt, and is what they call the men's Ruqun. Usually they are accessorized with a sash around the waist. The Banbi reappears. To jog your memory though, this is a half-sleeve overcoat worn by both men and women. It comes in various lengths and is usually worn over Yishang in men's cases. Its collar can be parallel or crossed. When worn with Yishang, it can be tucked in or left untucked like an overcoat. And the Beizi makes a reappearance as well. In case you guys don't remember, the Beizi is a parallel collar overcoat with side slits beginning at the armpit or at the waist. It can be long or short, have narrow or wide sleeves, and can be unlined or lined and suits most weather as a result. And now we have something new for once. This is the Dachang, which is a long ankle-length, open-fronted overcoat that used to be called Hechang or Changyi. It is tied at the front by ties and has large sleeves. In the Ming Dynasty, it was generally used for warmth by men, so it's of a thicker material and would always be lined, unlike Beizi, which can be unlined or lined. And I'm pretty sure Dachang are unisex as well, but I don't see women wear this as often. The Zhiju makes a reappearance as well. Honestly, most Hanfu is unisex, and the Zhiju is, as its name suggests, a one-piece robe with a straight bottom hem that circles around levelly. Usually I see men wear this at Yuanlingpao or Yishang because I guess they don't have like Aoquns to play with and all that. Also, while Quju is unisex, I don't see men wear it as often, which is why I did not include it for the men's side. The next is the Yuanlingpao that I just mentioned as well. And if you watch period dramas, you have definitely seen these. The Yuanlingpao is a round collar robe typically worn by men, but it became fashionable amongst women in some dynasties. I've seen some women wear this too, but it's in a more like Aoqun-like style, so I'm not sure if that counts as a whole another thing, so I didn't include it. But in the Tang Dynasty, a long red Yuanlingpao with long sleeves was worn by scholars and government officials, and this was called a Panling-Lanshan, and it was worn together with a futou hat. And these are futos. And in the Ming Dynasty, they wear a wushamao instead of a futou because wushamao are kind of like Ming Dynasty knockoffs of futos. These are the wushamaos. And officials, nobles, Yuanlingpao was also wedding with commoners. The groom will wear a wushamao and a ninth-ranked official's robes, but the pictures I have on the right here look more like a noble wedding. In the Ming Dynasty, nobles and civilians started wearing it too. And what would differentiate the civilian versus official nobles Yuanlingpao was that the official and nobles would have a Mandarin square on it, also known as a ranked badge, called a Buzi on it. And nowadays, it's obviously used a lot more liberally though. And now I see it, and I think, oh my god, one can't sing. Next is the Zhiduo, which means the straight gathering of the robe, and it's a straight robe that follows the structure of a Shenyi. But unlike how Shenyi are floor-length robes, Zhiduo generally end near a little below the knee that reveal the garments underneath. Zhiduo is also known as Zheshan and Haiqing as well, and the former would be referring to casual Zhiduo, while the latter refers to priest Zhiduo. Nowadays, the Haiqing is also referred to as the Daopao. Besti just has so many names. Next up though, and I think last of the men's Hanfu section, we have the Shuhe, which is also known as the Tuanda, which consists of a top which can be short or long sleeved, but that goes down to the thighs or the knees and is coupled with a sash-tied pair of trousers. Shuhe is one of the most commonly worn Hanfu styles historically because of how convenient and practical it is. It was worn by a lot of common folk for daily life, including activities like farming. It gets confused with Zhiduo as well sometimes because both reveal the pants underneath, but Shuhe generally have shorter tops that end at the thigh or the knee, while Zhiduo end a little below the knee. And that wraps up the common styles of men's Hanfu too. And next part is the last section, in which I'll be talking about accessories worn with Hanfu. I'm skipping really obvious stuff like earrings, hairpins, and necklaces though. Alright, to start us off, I was always very curious what this was whenever I saw them in dramas, so I was really happy to find out what they were called when I was researching them. But this is the Mili, which is a type of wide-brimmed hat with a body-length veil that was used to cover a woman's body from strangers' eyes and was typically worn during the Sui and the Tang dynasty. But it evolved into the less conservative weimao, which kept the veil only up to like the shoulder and was mostly used to cover the head. In modern Hanfu though, it has beads and fringe instead of veil sometimes. People get really creative with it. And I don't think Mili are worn by men often, but weimao definitely are. This can be seen by this picture. After that, we have the Doupeng, which literally means cloak in Chinese. So capes and cloaks are all Doupeng. It is often fur-lined for warmth. And there is actually a bit of controversy whether Doupeng count as Hanfu because historically they were cape-like clothing in pre-Qing China, but unlike the Doupeng worn with a lot of Hanfu today, they did not have hoods attached. The Doupeng worn with Hanfu often nowadays are usually hooded, and while not counted as authentic Hanfu by some, is still used for practical or aesthetic reasons. And next we have the Pibo, which is also known as the Beizi, which is a shawl or a long scarf that drapes on the shoulder from back to front. It evolved from a long shawl to a ribbon between the arms. More often I see them made out of chiffon or a light thin material, but sometimes I come across them with a more opaque or thick looking fabric. It is often worn as a decoration for Qixiong or Ruqun in general. And to be honest, Pibo doesn't have a lot of info for it online, so I had to do a lot of my own studying, so some of these claims might be totally baseless because I am no professional, but I'm, only barely dipping my feet into the water, But I'm thinking it might have originated from the Beizi, which I just bullshitted the pinyin for because I can't even find what Hanzi it is used with because it's so obscure, which apparently was a wide and short cape that drapes over one's shoulders, but I can't find a description for it at all. Anyway, I'm thinking nowadays maybe people just consider the Pibo to be a fun splash of color to one's outfit, or a fun drapey thing, so they don't actually follow the usual color conventions, but like what I found out of it, anyway, said that it was made with silver or gold chiffon back in the Tang Dynasty. I don't know if it was specific to this, but knowing how modernized Hanfu is getting, I would believe it to be people doing whatever the hell they want. And I think some of you may have seen this before, but sometimes women in Chinese period dramas have these forehead markings, and they're called Huadian. But yes, Huadian, also known as Huazi, plum makeup, plum blossom makeup, or xiong makeup, is a form of traditional ornamental forehead makeup that was most popular during the Tang Dynasty. It's usually painted on the face or a temporary tattoo. Sometimes they are worn on the cheeks as well, and these are called mianye or xiaoye and take the form of a dimple. And for the longest time, to be honest, I confused them with the bindi, but then I realized that huadian tend to be of flowers, though there is also a single red dot pattern that they can use, but these are typically meant to symbolize the plum blossom, that like the origin of the Huadian, which was a plum blossom that fell on the forehead of the Shouyang princess and couldn't be removed for some reason. But because it looked beautiful on her, other women were just like, oh my gosh, that looks really pretty, and were like, I want that too, and it became all the rage. And I find that story really funny. And next up we have the Yunjian, which is known as the cloud collar, and which directly translates to cloud shoulder, and is a traditional Chinese shoulder ornament that's usually worn over Aoqun. It is named as such because it resembles a cloud pattern when laid flat. It's typically a detachable collar with cloud patterns, but it could also be used as a motif which falls around the collar or as a clothing applique. Due to its widespread use, it became associated with wedding clothing because brides wear yunjian decorated with ribbons and bells. In this use, it is also known as the phoenix collar. And next is the xiapei, which is a type of Chinese clothing accessory in either the form of a long scarf, a neckband, or in the shape of waistcoat, depending on the time period. But today I'll mostly be looking at it as its form as a long embroidered neckband in the Ming Dynasty. It was worn by queens as daily attire and by the wives of senior officials as formal attire, and it was also used as part of the ceremonial attire for titled women, and eventually became part of wedding attire for commoners. And now, onto fans. There were many types of fans in ancient China, but the most notable ones are the Tuanshan and the Zheshan. Fans often were decorated on both sides with paintings, poems, or calligraphy, and for Tuanshan, they'll be decorated with embroidery. And China made fans go from being a practical device to an art form in its own right. They were not only for cooling yourself back then, but also artwork and essentially status symbols that showed off your taste and your grace. The Tuanshan is a circular rigid fan that was already popular all the way back in the Han Dynasty and was said to signify union and happiness because of its full moon-like shape. Eventually it came to take on many different shapes though, such as flowers, or like, I've seen butterfly ones, but I think I forgot to put in a picture of it. And there is like a leaf as well. There are so many, it's very versatile. And these were carried by both men and women until the Ming Dynasty, when they became mostly identified as a fashion accessory for women. And next we have the Zheshan, which is also known as the head gathering style of fan because its ends meet together when folded. The Zheshan is actually not invented by the Chinese, but was brought to them by the Japanese and became very popular in the Ming Dynasty and replaced the Tuanshan as the fan to show off your social status with. It was also during this time that the culture of using fan gestures as a way to express moods developed. And lastly, I'm sure any wuxia drama watchers can definitely recognize these, but these are Bangshoudai, which are hand wraps that are simplified forms of the huwan, which are wrist guards. So these are Bangshoudai, and these are huwan. And these forms of accessories were commonly worn in ancient China during strenuous physical activity, such as manual labor and combat sports, such as hand-to-hand combat, sword fighting, archery, etc. They have two purposes. Number one, to bind up the sleeves for convenience, and number two, to protect the wearer's hands and arms. And that is it. There are a lot more Hanfu and Hanfu accessories and things about it in general, but I already spent a whole week making this PowerPoint, and I give up. I throw in the towel. I'm done. And thank you so much for watching. You can find me on Twitter at pinklacker69 or Shuesque at XUESQUE. And see you next video. And please like or comment if you liked this, or subscribe if you're interested in seeing me draw Hanfu next time, because I am probably going to do that. And I might also make a second part about a modernized Hanfu, which is also known as Hanyuansu. And because I've absolutely fallen in love with it, I'd love to share more about it. And half of it would really just be my search history on Taobao as well. But you know what? That might be okay. But thank you so much, and see you next time. Bye!